I need to get a good light for when I travel.
Yeah. Well,
Something
we're live
small.
now.
Awesome. I
Yeah.
love
All
it.
right. Perfect. All right, everyone. Thanks for coming today. Like we talked about, this is going to be the live Q&A with Seth Price, the personal branding expert, and he's also just launching a book called The Road to Recognition, which is a really great book. I've finished my copy of it already. A lot of good tips, not just from like the strategy perspective, but actually then insightful how-tos as well. So I really wanted to, so I'm excited to have him on because we can talk all about it. I took questions from you guys. I came up with a lot of my own questions as well. And certainly if you back and forth, put them up, we'll get them on the screen and get answered for you. But before we get started, anyone who doesn't know Seth, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Seth Price. I am the VP of Industry Relations here at Playster. So I was the number three hire, wore all of the what we call go-to-market hats. So anything that had to do with marketing, sales, customer service, I have worn that hat to get us to where we are today. And I do a lot of focus on personal branding, like how to leverage that not only as an individual, but within an organization so you can help the organization grow quicker and generate more sales and build trust before you actually meet folks. I speak a lot and I write a lot and I try and generally be useful to the ones around me.
And you were an agent too, right?
I did. I had my license. I was a realtor for 5 years. Back in the boom days, I got back into tech uh, as a CMO for a tech company in 2008. So that was just when the market was tanking. And I'd like
Good
to say
timing.
that I had some forethought, but it was just going really well. But I also got offered this amazing job and came back into the fold.
Awesome. Yeah, now Playstar is doing great things too, so it's exciting.
Yeah, we're super proud of what we're doing here.
So just get start off with the question that I get the most about branding, and I'm sure
Yep.
you hear this all the time, about how much the logo matters and how much of your brand is your logo.
So logos are an interesting thing because in many ways, logos are the thing that have people remember you later. And when you're starting out, and when I say starting out, you haven't built what's called a recognized brand, meaning someone sees an Apple logo and you don't even need to see the right color or the right size. You know what it is because they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars creating product, providing customer service, and building a reputation. And so that now the logo's everything. But in the beginning, it was just Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak going to conferences and shaking hands and introducing themselves and telling their story and their vision. That's the brand in the beginning. And the logo in many ways is just, it's a calling card that reinforces it. But the human and the activity that the human does is more important than anything else, especially in the early years of building a brand. Now, that said, if you're going to do a logo, avoid curly Q fonts that when you, or logos that when you make them really small, it's hard to read what it is. Or think about in real estate, if it can't be seen on your sign really clearly, you miss out on the ability that a logo has to build pattern recognition in the viewer. And that's the important part. No Comic Sans, exactly.
Yeah,
Just to avoid it at all costs.
yeah, that's like the worst one that there is.
Yes.
Just Dan Gilbert.
There's a whole bunch of bad ones out there. There's all you go to the free font sites and everyone goes, "Oh, I want it to be sort of, you know, interesting," and so they pick a script or something, and that can be the worst thing that you could possibly do.
Yeah, and so if you had to get a logo design just starting out, how would you go about getting that done?
Well, before that, I would do a little bit of work, which is I would think about who my audience was, and then think about what my mission was in like creating and getting my business into the market. And that will help determine the type of logo that you create. Like being clear about who you are and who you're serving makes it a lot easier to create a logo. So let's say you do that work. The next step is to hire the best graphic designer that you can and tell them what your objectives are. Don't tell them how to be a graphic designer because that's not what you studied most likely, but tell them what you're trying to accomplish. Like, here's an example. You could go, hey, I'm a realtor. I serve the luxury market, and my customers, they drive Mercedes, they shop at Nordstrom's, they take 2 or 3 vacations a year, and I want a logo that I can use on a sign, on a business card, on my website, and I want it to be just as easily visible. And I don't want to have to use a lot of colors when I print. Like, that's a framework for a designer that person can then go, oh, I see what you're trying to accomplish. Let me create some ideas for you to look at.
Makes sense. So how do you decide colors? I know a lot of people talk about only doing 2 or 3 colors per logo. How do you feel about colors on your logo?
I'd say the fewer the better, because one of the challenges with any sort of printing and matching web colors to colors in reality is that the more colors you have, the harder it is. I mean, it's just a reality of, if you've ever printed anything, like you see it on your screen, you press print, and then it looks different in some way. So I would focus on, 2 colors at most, so you get the strength of having those colors represent you in everything that you do. And that way people become accustomed, like similar to Tiffany blue, right? We see that color anywhere and we know that it's Tiffany's. So if you pick 2 colors that you are willing to live with for the next 2, 3, 5 years, and then make sure that you utilize them everywhere that you can, because it's a reinforcement of, oh, I know that guy, Andrew. I've seen him. I've seen his logo. I've seen his colors. There's a DNA to that, and that's helpful.
So that actually leads into a good question that we had from one of our group members. Okay. So you look at a brand like Remax, they have, the blue, the red, white, and blue. It's pretty recognizable.
Yep.
From an individual agent standpoint, how important is it to build your own brand versus leveraging the brand that you have from the brand that you're a part of, like Remax or Keller Williams or LePage, any of them?
That's a great question. So you are an ambassador of this great brand that's been built by Remax. But at the same time, in your community and with your customers, you have a reputation on your own. And so I look at brands slightly differently than what many people think about in the sort of shiny object. Brand to me is really about reputation. So that's first and foremost. And part of being an ambassador to a larger brand and leveraging it 2 ways, it's a win-win, right? You create revenue for the larger brand lends its clout and its reputation to you. You as an individual need to build your own reputation that's apart from the corporate. And it doesn't mean that you need to go out and create a mini logo mark within that, but it does mean that you need to have a visual representation of who you are. So a good way to do that is to brand yourself as your name, or the name of your Remax brokerage. Or if you're an individual agent, it's really just focusing on your name and making sure that people understand that when not only do they see the Remax logo, but when they see your name and the colors that you've chosen and the imagery and the content that you create, that you are something unique within all of the agents that belong to Remax. And that's the distinction of personal branding. It's not like, hey, you're going to go off and do your own thing and ignore Remax, because that would be a waste of the dollars that you spent to participate. But you can augment it in a way that you both complement each other.
So that actually brings up another point, which is an interesting debate I've seen, at least locally. I don't know how far this goes on throughout the rest of North America, but locally, one of the things we've seen is a lot of people in the big brands don't keep the traditional signage on their for sale signs.
Yep.
So like with the Remax, you see the very traditional color, the tricolor look. A lot of individual agents are going away from that, which obviously the brand doesn't want. Where do you feel they should do in terms of the for sale sign, keeping the traditional look, or going completely on their own on the for sale sign in front of the property?
Well, I don't have a pat answer to that. I think it's one of commitment and where you think your long-term value is going to be. There is a huge amount of value to the corporate reputation that's been built by Remax. And so when people see that sign, they have most times immediate recognition of the Remax brand. Now, that said, that sort of puts you in the back as an individual, meaning that I can't tell the difference between you as a Remax agent or someone else in your neighborhood as a Remax agent. And so you just have to decide like where you're going to get the best distinction for who you are as an individual within that organization. Certainly doing your own, signage is a way to do it, but it may not be the highest and best use of your time and your money. It just may not.
Makes sense. And now, in that same kind of vein, if you were on a team, so first we'll look at it from the perspective of the team leader.
Yep.
How would you brand the team in terms of either your name or giving like a name that maybe you could sell down the road so it's not specific to you?
So again, selling brokerages is very difficult, for one, just so people are aware of that. You really have to build with an eye from the beginning for that kind of scale to make it appealing for someone to think about buying it. So that's number one. So being clear about your goals. Number two is I still believe that most times the team lead is a rainmaker. So generally that's the case. They have built a brand or a reputation that is based upon who they are, not upon the name of this, the Seth Price team or some random name of a geographical area.
Yeah.
I think it's really a decision. And what I like to do is I suggest that people map out a long-term plan for themselves, like mission, vision, and then goals for 3 to 5 years. And if what you're trying to do is the short term, is build your own reputation so you can figure out how to scale, like how big do you want your team? Do you want to have a brokerage at some point? Because you can always change it. And the last thing to remember is that your entire sphere of influence, they don't remember you because of your logo. They don't remember you because of the name of your team. They remember you because of you. And so early on, the leverage that you have is as you as an individual. And that's the lowest hanging fruit.
Makes sense. So, and now when you're back on the team one, now if you're the team lead, how would you go about branding like the agents on your team? Because I know if I'm an individual going up against a team lead in like a listing presentation, what I'm going to say is you never get the team leader. They're just going to pass you off to someone under them. But So you kind of want to build up your team so that people are comfortable with them. But at the same time, if you build them up, then they might be leaving and starting their own team.
That's always a risk. So I would say that one, you need to hire really carefully to make sure that people are in the right roles and they're on the team for the right reasons. The reality is you are going to have people leave to do other things, and your most effective situation is going to be able to empower them to be as successful as humanly possible, because that's going to make you successful. And I've seen time and time again where a leader in an organization literally wants to hide everyone else and not share in the success. And it creates a culture that is not necessarily conducive for rapid growth. So that said, one, make your own brand really strong, invest in content, invest in your branding, invest in your website, invest in social as the team lead, but also empower the others on your team to be on social, to make sure that they have a web presence, to make sure that they're creating and sharing content, but that it's in line with the mission and the values that you have as the team lead. And if they're not in line, then you've probably hired the wrong person.
That makes sense. That's actually exactly how I thought about it. So I'm glad that we agree on that one.
That's great.
It works so well. So when you're going, and this is like you briefly mentioned before about knowing your target market. I know before I keep going, I just want to remind everyone, if you have questions for Seth, you can put them in the comments and we'll get them answered live while we're going. That's obviously the benefit of doing a live Q&A. So if you guys have questions, certainly put them in the comments below and we'll put them up on the screen and get answered for you.
That's great.
So one of the most important things for me that I know a lot of agents don't do is building a persona that they're marketing towards.
Yeah.
So for you, one, maybe just give them a kind of a brief explanation of what I mean by persona.
Yeah.
And then important when you're doing marketing.
Yeah. So let's say you live in a town, and in many ways you might market to everyone. You might say, hey, everyone is looking to buy or sell a house. But you also might have a sweet spot for one. Maybe you do relocation. Maybe you do really well with waterfront housing for recreation. Maybe you do well with sort of homes around the golf course. Whatever your niche is, there's probably a certain type of buyer that is the ideal buyer and seller in that niche that you focus on. And we call that a persona. And the deeper you can dive in understanding that persona, the easier it is to reach them. And what I mean by that is, imagine you go into a party and you go, hey, my persona is anyone that's between the ages of 40 to 70 and wears glasses. It makes it a lot easier for me in that party to identify who to speak to, because I can't speak to everyone. And when you're thinking about advertising or creating content, you can't do that for everyone and have it be effective. So the narrower you can be focused, the easier it is for you to identify who you should be speaking to and who you should be marketing to. So that's a simple way to think about it.
Yeah, I get that question. Like every time I onboard a new client, one of the first things we go over in our strategy call is who's your target market? Like,
Yeah.
who are you looking to buy and sell? And I'd say 80% of the time, the answer is everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then
Well,
we really have to then break it down.
yeah. That's it's a huge mistake, but it comes from fear, right? It comes from fear of going, if I choose new home buyers or if I choose luxury clients, I have to ignore the rest. And that's not necessarily the case. What it means is you get to build a reputation in this portion of the market with a target demographic that you can then leverage to do other things once you build that reputation. And so, a great example that I've seen is Via Williams, who's in Seattle. She started in the industry. She's been in it for a long time, but she created, I think, since 2000. 3 years ago, she decided to focus, and she did her mission, vision, values, and she decided she was going to go for luxury. So everything she does is about serving the luxury market. And what's interesting about that is that she still gets other business, but she has built a reputation and allowed her to scale and attract talent who want to be a part of that commitment that she's made. And that's all a persona is. Make a commitment, draw a line in the sand and go, I'm really good at serving this audience, and then articulate that. And that becomes your brand, and then it can expand from there.
Yeah, and I agree completely. Like, I was talking to one client who sells in like cottage country, and there's one where there's like three main lakes. Like if you know Muskoka at all, there's essentially three big lakes. And this person, like, he was very upset because he had started been known as the guy who only does the big lakes. Yeah. He's like, no, but I also smell the smaller lakes too. I'm like, yeah, we built this reputation on the big lakes now. Double down on that and really go for it. Because that's where all the high priced ones are too. But you're getting that reputation as that guy. Don't worry as much about the smaller lakes anymore. Yeah. Go big. That's how I kind of felt like especially when you're getting known for something, really double down on it. And make it work.
One of the things that happens to lots of folks is they start to get some traction building reputation for a certain set of, expertise that they have. And then they go, oh, I want to do something else. Brands and reputation are built on repetition. And if all of a sudden you change in mid-flight, you've wasted all the effort and all the content that you've created around this one aspect of your brand, and then said, oh, today I'm going to serve this totally different audience. And all of a sudden the consumer is confused. And so when you decide, the key is you can still do lots of other things, but focusing on who you serve and what your special expertise is will allow people to remember for years to come that you're different because of pick a thing.
Yeah. I love that. I completely agree. I want to go into one other thing you talked about in the book that is kind of around that same idea of picking a group and serving it. You talk a lot about helping your community in the book, which I like a lot because for me, that's kind of like what I like to do too, kind of help as much as I can. Yeah. So why do you think that is so important when you're building a brand?
Well, it's not just important when you're building a brand. It's a differentiator today. So we've recently watched the meltdown of one of the major brands of an airline because of an action taken by one person. And so two things to think about take away from that. One is brand building is really difficult to achieve, but very easy to crush. And
Yeah.
so that's one piece. The second side of the equation is that attention is really hard to earn today. We are inundated with lots of inputs. So whether that be social inputs, text, phone, all of the channels that we can choose, and then our own just day-to-day lives, the things we like to do. And so if you are a marketer, you're trying to get attention from either a buyer or a seller, you don't get the right out of the gate to get their attention. You have to earn it. And so earning it today means doing something of value for that individual that they actually care about when they don't need to buy or sell. Because once you earn the right, then they are willing to let you in. And what that looks like is they actually read your emails, or they respond to your text, or they pick up the phone, or they show up to an appointment. That is earning the right to communicate with someone. And the other part of it is that it feels good. Like you get to do what you love to do best generally, which is to serve people and have them feel good about the experience. And when you're helping people, that's like, there's nothing better than that. It's like to focus your business about providing value to the customers and your team and the community around you. Like that's a win-win-win across the board.
Yeah. And I agree. Like when I was selling, I did one that I thought for the community would be great because no one was doing it, which was a Christmas light competition.
Yeah.
And there was no one doing anything like that. And it actually was great for business because I remember the guy who won, he won two years in a row, just says, I love what you're doing in the community. I'm going to be listing my house in the spring. Give me a call back in a couple of months and let's get this set up. And there wasn't even anyone else coming in to interview. It was basically a complete lie down just because I was out there doing it to him and never pitched him once.
Yeah.
During that whole process.
There are so many ancillary benefits to doing good work in your community, is that so if you think about a community, in a given time, there are maybe 5 to 8% of the people that might be moving in some way, right? The rest of the folks, why do they have a reason to interact with you or remember you? And without some sort of, I call it service, but thinking of how to provide value to the world around you, without that, there's not a reason for them to pay attention to who you are. And the ancillary benefit is, if I see you in the world and I remember you for the Christmas tree, competition, or helping out at the local food bank, or, whatever it is that you do, all of a sudden I have a know, like, and trust about you that you didn't have before. And so when I see an ad, I'm like, oh, I know that guy. Or when you call me up or we meet at a cocktail party, I'm already okay with talking to you because you've crossed the initial barrier. And that's the ancillary value that is almost inquantifiable.
Yeah. And that's one that I like to point out too. Like, I think, especially locally, for a lot of people, like, they always think when someone talks about helping the community, it's always charity based, which is a great way to do it. But I don't think it also has to be charity based either. No. Like, you can just do like a hockey game in your area with the local team, or bring people out to a game, or rent a box, or do charity.
Yeah, you're 100%. It actually doesn't even need to be completely unrelated to your business. It could be a tour of the most beautiful modern homes in your area. It could be content about relocating to your area that's better than anywhere else on the web. And that's in service to people that are looking. It could be, a guide to the best dog parks or the best restaurants, or really being that hub that we talk about when we're realtors. We're like, yeah, I know more about this community, and generally we do, but we don't showcase that on the web. Like, imagine if I went to your site and you were a realtor and I was moving to your town and you had the best resources for moving to that town. That's service, because you're serving me even if I'm not going to buy and sell with you. Yeah. So that fits into that whole category. It's just a different stage of the funnel.
Yeah. One of the really great examples I find of that, which I know you would probably agree, would be the Brell team downtown Toronto.
Oh yeah. Melanie Pichet, she's phenomenal. Yeah.
They got some of the best content I've seen for helping people kind of locally.
Yeah.
And internationally, they get international buyers from it, everything.
Yeah, there are tons of great examples. I think one of the challenges for many people is we start an activity that has some overlapping positive, feel good, helping experience and drives ROI. So to me, that's a Venn diagram, right? There's two circles that overlap, and in the middle, there's like a win-win situation. Is people will start an activity and then just stop. And so blogging is a perfect example of that. One of the things that Melanie has done is, I think for 6 years, she has blogged month in and month out to serve her customers and potential customers with valuable information, and she's just not stopped. Whereas so many people around her thought it was a great idea and they sort of started, but then they stopped and they don't have a body of work that turns into this brand that is serving people on the web.
And it's like, to me, I always liken it to like when you're blogging as an example, because I love the blog. That's my kind of preferred way to kind of promote my business. Yeah, it's because it's powerful, and like it worked really well for me in real estate. It's working now well for my business. And what a lot of people do is like when an agents are like geo-farming a neighborhood and door knocking, they go out for a month, they don't get any results, and they stop. When really you're not going to really get those results 6 months to a year down the road. Like I remember when I was blogging with my first business, I think it was 6 months till I got my first lead off of blogging. There's a lot of like learning there, so probably if I started now, it'd be quicker. But 6 months to get my first lead, but then after that, every time I'd post, I'd get 1 or 2 people messaging me after that. Like it started that flow going because I built up the community that was there.
So that brings up a good point that I'd like to cover for folks is people think of digital marketing as an all or nothing. And I think that they really need to run in tandem with the activities that drive immediate ROI, because you have a business to run. So the content marketing and the longer term activities that take 3, 6, 9, 12 months to see like measurable results, those should happen. That's like building the runway for success. And combine that with the activities that will get you immediate results. So advertising, door knocking, calling people, like those are things that if you call enough people, you're going to get people that answer the phone and do stuff. And then if you support it with the helping and the content, it makes it so much easier to convert because you're not purely cold. They've seen you somewhere. They've experienced you out in the world.
Yeah, I like to do a combination of content marketing and kind of a bit of direct response marketing too.
Yeah.
By giving, but I'm sure you've heard me talk about it before with ebooks. Those are my favorite way right now to get quick leads now because they're normally very warm leads when they finally come in, and they work really well, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So another great thing I liked in your book, which I also like to do in my business as well, is influencer marketing. And a lot of people hear that as real estate agents, but it's how to put it into practice. That's what's wondering, like, how would you leverage influencer marketing in your business?
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of ways to think about it. An influencer is someone who has sway over the audience that you want to do business with. That's all an influencer is. And it doesn't have to be someone famous. It doesn't have to be someone that has a huge mailing list. It has to be someone that the people that you ultimately want to do business with respect and will possibly listen to. So here's just a few scenarios to think about. One is, imagine if you're creating content. So I think you talk about content with your audience quite a bit. Imagine if you create content showcasing the leaders of industry in your town. So I'll give a perfect example. In Bend, Oregon, there's a dear friend, Greg Fisher, who moved there from San Francisco. And he was like, I need a better life. I want a nicer place to live, better quality of life, lower cost, all that kind of stuff. Before he moved there to start his business, he did 2 things. One, he had done a ton of research on what it was like to move there. So he put up a website called Bend Station. So it's BEND station.com. And he wrote all of his content on there. And then he started a podcast. And this is before he actually showed up in Bend. And he interviewed the leaders of industry. So the folks that had the tech incubator, some really cool business CEOs, the folks that were in political service, and he created this podcast and shared it with the community. Now, when he shows up and is actually living in Bend, guess what? People want to meet him. They want to talk to him. So all of a sudden, he's leveraged the clout of people that are respected in the community to build a reputation that sets him apart from anybody else. Within the first year, he did $11 million in sales. Now, this is moving cold to a place that he has zero, like zero relationships. And when he hit the ground, he had a whole bunch of people that wanted to buy him a drink because he had done influencer marketing, but also serve the community. Like, that's the power of influencer marketing.
Yeah, that's what I love. Like, I love the idea of like connecting with politicians locally, business owners, people like that, because they have such large networks that it's easy to tap into. Like, I was at an Aurora Chamber of Commerce. I live in a town called Aurora. Went to the Chamber of Commerce. I've gone to now about 4 or 5 meetings since I've joined. Yeah. I've only run into a real estate agent once at one of the events.
Wow.
And there's all of these local people there. And I know there's agents in them because like at that Christmas party for the chamber, they all came to that.
Yeah.
But then all the other meetings, like the breakfast meetings, none of them are at. And everyone gets a minute or two to pitch their services. It's such like a great way to get in front of local people and kind of get some really good connections going.
Yeah. I mean, there's another person that people should look at who's a RE/MAX agent. Her name is Judy Weiniger, and she's out of Warren, New Jersey. I can't remember the URL of her website, but one of the things that she's done really well is, so we've all heard of doing videos on our websites, right? It sounds great. We should interview folks in our community. She has taken this a step further. She's invested in professional videos of her favorite establishments in her town, her favorite restaurants, hamburger joints, Pilates studios, yoga studios, because she loves yoga and Pilates. And not only did she hire a professional photographer, she introduced herself to the owners. She showcased them on her site, and then she shared it with the folks that own the businesses, and they share it. Now think about the power there. This is not just randomly writing a blog and not really talking to the owner. This is doing almost like a TV spotlight on a business in your town and making them look like a star. The relationship that you build from there is that she told me this. You could text her and she would tell you that they offer to buy her dinner all the time. She has to turn them down because she feels weird at being offered such gifts. But that's as a result of doing what I call influencer marketing, which is showcasing other people that have sway over your audience and making them look like successful people that they are.
Yeah. That reminds me of this story I heard. It was a newspaper somewhere in the States. I can't remember exactly where it was. I think it was in like somewhere in the Midwest. And it was this one newspaper that when everyone else's revenues were going down, theirs were going up. They're the only newspaper that seemed to have revenues going up, right? When like digital marketing really started chipping away at it. And so people went to look at why their revenue was going up. And when they talked to the editor, he made the point that every single article that goes out has to mention someone locally, no matter if it's just awesome. Talking about like the president, and they're just like, and then local person John Smith had this to say about the new policy, but everything mentioned local. Yeah. I thought it was genius because just again, it's getting like if I'm in an article, I'm sharing that with my entire network for sure.
Yeah,
every article.
So, if you've ever read any of the Dale Carnegie books or any of his content, he has this saying, which is the one word in any language that an individual loves more than anything else is their own name. And so by including other people in what you create, in how you promote, even in your advertising, showcasing successful closings with people, having testimonials on your site, reviews on Zillow and Realtor and wherever else you put reviews, those things mean something. And it's a way for the individual to go, oh yeah, I participated and I have something to say. That's what we want in life. And so you're just facilitating that to forward your business.
Yeah. So when you're talking about because one of the great things about this is when you're connecting with successful people, and this is another thing that I read in your book, which I love, and I'm trying to set some actually up in my business right now locally, are mastermind groups. So it's just a group of successful people getting together. So for you, if you were to start one now or join one, what would you look for in a mastermind group?
So I'll tell you what I found in a mastermind group, which is, and I didn't know what I was exactly looking for. It was a pre-existing group, and I love maybe 35 times a year, and I'm trying to get really good at my craft. And so what I wanted to be in a group of people that are also already accomplished, but trying to get good at their craft. So people that are really great already. So an example, fellow Canadian Scott Stratton is in this group, and there's a whole bunch of other marketing speakers. For me, it's the best group I've ever been in because I get to talk about something I'm passionate about. It is not a lot of sales, and we're trying to help each other improve our craft, get more speaking gigs. We get to complain about some of our travel woes, like I was stuck on planes for good 18 hours in the last week because of this weather debacle. But that's what the group serves. And what's amazing is that we don't ask each other for business, but we refer each other all the time. That's just a byproduct of being in a group that you're serving each other. And so that's the ideal mastermind, is that if you're just starting out and you want to create your own, keep it small and make sure that there's a collective unified purpose for each person in there, so they're going to get value, and make sure that you have some accountability within that group, because then the participation needs to be regular for it to actually have any value. You can't just like, I'm in a mastermind and not check in for a couple months. You're not getting anything out of it. Feel like you're adding any value.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of them end up falling apart, is when there's no like formal system set up, which I think is important to have that system set up. Yeah. So I'm trying to set one up now locally, and someone's taking a lead on it, but we're going to, like, every Thursday morning, we're all meeting for breakfast every week.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
I'm excited about that one.
That's going to be good.
Perspective, what do you see the value is in networking with other real estate professionals, considering that most of them are your competition?
Well, I think that not doing that is one of the challenges for the real estate industry, is that there's this perception that by sharing ideas that people are going to copy your ideas. And the thing that I like to tell people is that, well, one, that's going to happen anyway. Like, it's just going to happen. And two, it's probably almost inconceivable that you have an idea that has not been thought of before. Like, it is very rare in this day and age of petabits of information in storage. And that's, a zillion basically of bits of information that are out there, that are all the ideas that exist in the world that can be Googled in a moment's notice, that you've come up with something that no one in the world has thought of. So that's number one. Number two is we learn quickest by modeling. That's how we've grown as humans, is we see something successful and we can learn what's worked and what's not worked for another individual, and we can model it. And what modeling looks like is not copying someone's site verbatim and stealing their content. What it means is adopting the strategies that someone is using, because you're always going to do it differently. And by collaborating with other folks in your industry, you get to learn how to hadn't thought about, and you get to test ideas and have people give you their opinion, and then you can ultimately formalize your plan of action. So I'm a huge proponent of collaborating with other people, with competitors, even like direct competitors, because what you're going to find out is even if you copy something, it's not going, and even if they copy something from you, it's not going to be the same. Now, the last part of this is, because we're in real estate, if you collaborate within your community and outside of your community, guess what? If I know someone that wants to move to Aurora, who am I going to think of as another agent to refer them to but the person that I've already been collaborating with? And that's the power of building this network of people in industry. You learn, you build a referral network, and you get to go faster.
Yeah, like I've learned, like I know it personally, I've learned a ton networking with people, even that are competitors of mine, and it works really well. And
it does.
And one that's been great for, I know a lot of people as well, you probably agree on this too, is speaking at events. Because I speak at events, and I get asked a lot as well for like who to recommend as speakers for events, especially locally. Because I find when you go to big events, it's easy to find speakers, but kind of local, smaller events, it's a little bit harder. And when I speak to a lot of agents, a lot of them aren't actually that interested in doing speaking gigs. Even normally, sometimes it's like a fear of speaking issue, but a lot they don't see the value. So
yeah.
for you, did you believe an individual agent who's not selling any products to like other agents, that value's there to go speaking?
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of ways I would think about it. If you're looking at speaking to be the lead generation model for your business, I would say, unless you have something to sell from the stage or close to it, that you're not going to get immediate ROI, return on investment, from speaking. But if what you're trying to do is establish your expertise in your community or wherever these events happen, there's no better way than to be on stage where you have 50, 100, 1,000, 2,000 people in the audience listening to your thesis on how things work in the world, regardless of what your subject matter is. That's powerful stuff. Because again, we go back to attention. We can't get one person's attention for an hour straight or 50 minutes straight or whatever it is the length of your talk, let alone multiply that by 100 or 1,000. And so that's that power there. And then there's tons of ways to leverage that once you get those events. So let's say if you're speaking locally and you do the local chamber or you do local events, all of a sudden right? You need to do a decent job speaking. You need to have a message worth sharing that people are going to listen to. People want to talk to you after you've spoken. They want to like, as opposed to you having to cold call into their world, they're now interested in pursuing your ideas and wanting to know more about how you think.
Yeah, I agree completely. That's like, I see tremendous value there in speaking, but definitely not as a straight lead gen for agents to grow their business.
Yeah, it's a long road. But if you're the rainmaker for your organization and you're also trying to recruit, like that's part of how you think, like speaking is pretty powerful, right? Because all of a sudden you're a subject matter expert that other people are validating your existence by inviting you to the stage. Yeah. That's the perception in the world.
Yeah, like I know, like what I've noticed is events where I'm speaking, there's always good things that come out of it, even if it's not business, just connections. But if I get a booth at an event, it's very, very little value for me at a booth. Like I've stopped getting together.
Yeah, you and I were talking about this earlier, but I was just at an event where this comedian opened the event, and he did the opening, and I did the main keynote. And I was a little intimidated. His name is Cash Levy, an amazing comedian. And he had everybody laughing to the point where people were crying and holding their bellies. And I needed to go up after that. And I was like, oh my God, he's just ruined it for me. The event turned out really well. And it actually turned out that he set me up perfectly. But at the end, I had dinner with him. And we established this, like I can help him because I focus on marketing. He could help me because he speaks, 50 times a year. And it was just one of these serendipitous moments that would never have happened had I just been in the audience. Like he wouldn't have just randomly chosen me and gone, hey, let's go have drinks.
Yeah.
He's, you want to have a drink or something? And that was the beginning of a friendship.
Yeah. And for me, like I know most conferences I've been to, the best connections are actually with other speakers. Like you go to them, you talk, and then whether you're going out for drinks after or you just chatting on while you're there between sessions, it's always an incredibly valuable experience.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we're going to go to the next set of questions here. So someone actually randomly private messaged me a competition. Or a question. They didn't put it in the group here. I don't know. I didn't put it in the chat.
So
I got a private message.
So sad.
I know. I kind of want to call them out, but since they did it privately, I won't.
Okay, that's fine.
How much focus would you put on building your email list? And would you run campaigns that only got an email?
Yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. Email is this amazing, underutilized marketing activity that 90% or 99% of agents ignore or do very, very, very poorly. And why I say that is email is permission based. So you have this list of clients and past clients that gave you the right, they gave you permission to email them. And yet we don't stay in touch with them in the email. Or worse, if we do, we're not necessarily a friend in the inbox. We're the person that sends them this random newsletter that we don't even want to read.
Yeah.
And so if you grow your email list, the things that you'll figure out is if you email them regularly, you're going to have an open rate, and then you're going to have a click-through rate, and you're going to have a conversion rate. And those are all numbers that you can impact. So what it means is, let's say your list is 1,000 people, which is a decent sized list. And imagine half of that list, you've been in the business for a decade, half of that list are past customers that you've either helped buy or sell a house. And you email them once a month with something about the community, maybe this amazing house, but you're not always selling them. You're just trying to be like a community builder in your space. And then every once in a while, you call people to go, hey, I'm just checking in. I'd loved having you as a client. I haven't spoken to you in a while. Well, one, this isn't a cold call because you've been communicating with them. And two, you now have this continued conversation, and that's the power of email. And you can do all kinds of things with it. You can sell listings that are pocket listings, like pre-market listings. You can help drive people to events. You can keep them informed about what you're doing. You open a new office, you're recruiting, any number of things. And that's what the power of email.
I agree. It goes back, I don't know how familiar you are with like a guy like Russell Brunson. That's what he talks about, is that's the list you own, which is the most valuable list you can have.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
I should apologize. I didn't realize the system I'm using is not showing the comments. I had to scroll through and individually get them. So we actually have a bunch of questions now.
Okay, great.
And so we'll cycle through them all and get them going. So the first one up, we're going to put it up on the screen here. So it's from Evan. It says, looking forward to your book. What are the best swag items you have seen for branding in our biz?
Oh, that's a great question. Hi, Evan. Love Evan Sage. If you guys don't know the Sage brothers, they are doing a fantastic job, not only with branding, but with their offices. Like, their physical offices are phenomenal. Their marketing is great. And the way they empower people, meaning the brokerages and the brokers and the teams within their organization. Melanie Pichet is one of those that she's got her own brand. So this goes back to something we talked about. She's got her own brand within this brand, and they support each other and they all benefit from it. So hello, Evan. Nice work. So I think swag is this really underused item. And what tends to happen is people don't personalize it enough. And so what I mean by that is there are lots of great companies out there that you can utilize to personalize gifts. And the key is personalization and timing, so it's not at the time that people expect a gift. Because if you send a gift during the holidays, well, they're getting tons of gifts and they're getting tons of cards. And so no one thinks it's fantastic. If you send a gift on an off holiday or just because, like, that's a powerful thing, because all of a sudden Andrew gets a gift and it's like, you know what? I really appreciate our friendship. I appreciate all the work. I appreciate you being a client. And here's something that I know you'll like. Like, that's powerful. So I look at swag as, well, one, you should definitely have a really nicely designed t-shirt, a nice hat, like some basic things that you can give away. But you should also think about using a service. So whether you use someone, a book called Giftology, and it's the process and business strategy of using gifts to drive more business. Great book. He's a Cutco rep that has augmented what he's done. And he does this really great customization, and they'll mail it. They'll write the card. You could use bond.co, which is that card writing service that looks like your handwriting, to augment it. There's a new company, actually not that new, 2014. It's called BoxFox, BoxFox.com. Had a great conversation with the CEO. I've been using that where I can customize a bunch of gifts in this really beautiful box and send that out to clients with a personalized note. Like, it is powerful. You get it? It's this like 8-pound box of stuff that someone might actually want, and you can pick and choose what's in it. So I look at swag slightly differently than most, in that I think that if you can make sure that you're giving the right thing to the right person. Like, you don't give a trucker cap to someone who's never going to wear a trucker cap. You don't give a t-shirt to someone who doesn't wear t-shirts. But if you look at the person and give them the right thing, you're going to notice that they remember you and they're more likely to refer you, and it strengthens the relationship.
I really love that idea you mentioned of setting it at off times, because I know so many who just, like, Christmas comes around, they go out with like fruit flans, fruit, all those different things. But yeah, you're right. It just gets lost kind of in the noise of all the other gifts they're getting. But you do it in July. Send
it on Thanksgiving. Like, send them something on a day that people don't give gifts. Send it on New Year's Day. Send it on like Easter. Like, do something at a time where I'm not expecting it. And if you're going to send a birthday gift, send it a week before.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, I was thinking, I know your birthday's coming up, and send them something that they can enjoy right away. Do you know what I mean? Like, send them something that, one, you're ahead of the game. Don't send it so it arrives on their birthday. Like, my wife, while she likes flowers on Valentine's Day, if I just randomly bring flowers home, talk about a happy wife. Like, it means that I've thought about her, not when I'm expected to think about her. And your customers are the same way.
Yeah, I agree completely. So another question here from David Kurt. Is there an agent of someone's branding who focuses on their value statement?
Oh, I think there's lots of agents that do that. And I think that it's not apparent from the outside that someone is focusing on their value statement. But I'll say, here's a perfect example. Ben Bacall out of LA, who is a rock star agent. And so I think currently has the most expensive listing in the US. And his value statement is that not only is he going to help you, buy and sell your house, but he's going to do a better job marketing your property than anybody else you could possibly hire. Like, he has a plan for how he's going to market it. That plan is manifested into his investment, into the videos and the content that he creates around the properties, and he delivers. So last year he did $425 million US in sales, and he's been able to articulate his value prop, which is, if you list your house with me, I'm going to do everything humanly possible to market this to the best of my ability, and I'm going to show you throughout the entire process. And that's what he does. And he did that sales, by the way, with 5 people on his team. That's it. Yeah. $425 million in sales with 5 people.
Yeah, I think I heard an interview on your podcast, actually, right? That was where he was speaking about that.
Yeah, he's a rock star.
Yeah, and he's from Toronto, for all the Toronto people, even though he moved out there and did it.
Exactly. Kelly, how are you, sir?
Kelly, I think Kelly. Hopefully he's still here. There's a question here from Lauren, but I actually don't remember what it's referencing.
What did she say?
What about guitar playing any shot? No? Okay.
I don't know if she's talking about you or I. I don't play the guitar. But content can take the form of music and performance. So I'm going to go on a riff here and sort of guess. One of the things that I've seen in other industries is it doesn't matter if you are writing the content or doing video. If you happen to be a business professional that has a real great skill at something else, highlighting that skill and showcasing that is perfectly a really great example or a great way to differentiate yourself in the market. If you were an opera singer and you also happen to sell real estate, like, who wouldn't remember who you were after seeing you sing an aria? Like, that's pretty awesome. And the same if you were a kick-ass guitar player and all of a sudden you're also a realtor, like, I would remember who you were.
Yeah. Like, I remember it was, I can't remember the song. It was a Taylor Swift song where there's an agent who made like a parody of it. And that had she got on the stage at Inman.
Yeah. I remember that. That was funny.
Lauren, get a Taylor Swift parody song, film it, put it on YouTube. You'll be on stage doing that.
Great. Not an end all strategy, just an activity that you happen to be passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like going into things that you like. Like, I love basketball and used to coach basketball, and that's where I put a lot of focus in, which in my area was great because Canada basketball is a lot, it's a lot smaller than, say, hockey, where everyone focuses all their time on sitting on the belly. So worked great.
Awesome.
Let's see if we have any more questions, and then if not, we'll almost. But I think if there's any other questions, let's see. But in the meantime, so Seth and I are talking. So I'm going to buy 25 copies of Seth's book, and we're going to give them out.
Thank you.
So here's what we're going to do: is we're not just going to give them out to anybody. You have to share .com on your Facebook page or your personal profile, and then screenshot it and send it to me. And the first 25 people who do will get a copy of Seth's book, and we'll send it out once they're live. And make sure you tag Seth and I in the post as well. But first, that will get a copy of his book, and I'll cover shipping and everything and get it all out to all of you individually.
That's awesome. So it's theroadtorecognition.com. Maybe you'll put that on the screen.
Yeah. It's glitching right now. I'm trying.
And if you tag me, I will definitely respond.
Sounds good. So I'm trying to get it up on the screen, but for some reason it's not going up. But I'll put a link in the comments for the Road to Recognition, so you can see the link just to make sure. But yeah, first 25 people.
Put the just so they know what they're supposed to do again.
Yeah.
No one listens the first time.
Yeah. So share the roadtorecognition.com on your personal profile or your business page, and tag Seth and I in the post, and then send me a screenshot of that you did that. And the first 25 that do it are going to get a copy of the book.
That's awesome. What's
the release date?
April 25th. So it's right around the corner. Awesome. It's available for pre-order everywhere, Barnes and Noble and 800 CEO reads and Amazon and all that stuff. And we're super excited. Comes out in hardcover first. And then we'll follow up with Audible as after. Of course, Kindle's available as well, and I think iBooks and whatever you read in, you're gonna be able to find an option.
Perfect. And I will send hard copies to everybody. So if you're doing the post, so if you want the Audible version, you have to buy the Audible version. But I'm sending hard copies.
You're gonna get.
I prefer hard copies.
Yeah, Audible's not ready yet. We're just starting recording that. So.
Sounds good. All right, so it looks like that runs out of time. We're right up on 3 o'clock now. So Seth, thank you very much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this, and I hope everyone else found some value from it too.
That's great. Awesome, folks. Connect with me on social. I love Twitter. I'm at Seth Price. I love Facebook. I'm at Seth Price as well. And Playster, if you're looking for content around marketing, you go to playster.com/academy. You'll find 1,000 posts and ebooks and videos on how to be a better marketer. And hope to see you around soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. That was awesome. Thank you very much.
Did that hit end?